Hey guys, welcome back to our channel
Plots with a Twist,
where we discuss books
amongst other things.
and we promised we got a book review.
Yes.
We're gonna get into Sorrow and Bliss today by Meg Mason.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into it. All right, so this was a book we Asia recently finished. I finished last. I guess we both finished it in March, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But I finished it earlier in the month.
Yeah.
She finished it later. But this was a book that I told Asia to read because I had seen it everywhere. I think what really made me read it, someone else had it in a picture with 7 Days in June. And I was like, oh, is it giving me the same vibe? But I read their review and they pretty much was like, it's not the same vibe, but it gave them the same thing. So it intrigued me. Yeah. So it intrigued me to like look further into it. So I was like, oh, I'm enjoying it so far. Add this to your list. So we got through it. So, okay. Summary. Boom.
You do the synopsis because I didn't do good in my wrap-ups.
Yes, you did. You did fine. Okay, so it centers around a woman named Martha. Martha struggles. She struggles through her life. She has like some type of undiagnosed mental illness that throughout her life she's really been trying to figure out what it is, given different diagnoses, given different types of medication. But really the mental illness has plagued her throughout her life, made an impact on all her relationships, and ultimately has put her in a position where the story starts. So the story starts with kind of like the breakdown between her and her husband. He throws her a 40th birthday party, and shortly after that, just the way she reacts and acts towards him, he ends up just leaving the house. So it kind of goes back from there into really her past and her life up until the point where her husband, decides he can't potentially be in this relationship anymore, and then goes from there. So, overall, it's just a story about someone grappling with a mental, seemingly not their mental illness, but eventually their mental illness, and ultimately how that plagues on her and just impact her decision making, and really getting an understanding of who she is and why her relationships are the way they are. So that was similar to yours.
Yeah, but no.
All right, so we will get into a little bit of our thoughts. So what did you like about the book?
Okay, so boom.
She got her likes. Look at her. I'm gonna start doing that.
So I liked the writing. I feel like although it started off kind of slow in the beginning, and I was kind of like, where's the story going? The writing was detailed enough that you got a good glimpse into what the main character was going through, but not so detailed that you're like, okay, girl, like you dragging certain things. Because I feel like sometimes stories can do that, especially when someone's a good writer and they want to like show that they're a good writer. But no, I love the writing. The plot of the story and like the storytelling of her life. I recently read The Paper Palace, and it's kind of similar in that it kind of goes back and forth from like childhood in the relationship with her parents and everything. And I feel like the difference between the two in this story, the storytelling made more sense in that it kind of, she was telling you how her parents and how she grew up and how her mom was, so that you could see the impact it had like on her mental health, and how those relationships kind of made her think of herself, and how she went into her relationship with her husband and stuff. Whereas in Paper Palace, it was just kind of like giving like a autobiography, like just telling you about her life story. And yes, there were like points, but anyway. I like that the storytelling, kind of the back and forth, like from her past to her present, it made a lot of sense, and it gave you more in depth of the main character, like about why she was the way she was. Okay. I also like that the mental, when it got to the point of, because you obviously see that she's like dealing with some type of like Chris said, undiagnosed like illness, but she kind of just thinks she's depressed. And when she finally figures out what's wrong with her, I like that they didn't actually name the mental illness, because it kind of just like I don't know. I just like that it didn't give like a specific label to it. It was kind of just like a broad. It seemed like it encompassed like a whole a bunch of different mental illnesses and issues, and kind of like she just figured out, okay, finally I know what's wrong with me and I can kind of deal with it. And the fact that it wasn't named, I think it made it more not relatable. What am I trying to say? Like,
you didn't attach a stigma to
yeah, like you didn't kind of like be like, yeah, like a stereotype or whatever, like, oh, like she's bipolar, or she's like, it's just like, no, she just has something that she's dealing with, and which we all can relate to, whether you have a mental illness or not. Like sometimes you deal with things and you know, once you figure out what it is, you're like, oh, okay. So I did like that, and I like the way that it ended. I feel like the ending was, what's it called, succinct. It was very like, I got everything I needed from the ending. I wasn't wondering what was going to happen here. I didn't feel like I needed more, like, oh, like a sequel or anything, like to see like where it was going to go. You kind of like, I think things ended the way it needed to end. And that's kind of like, I don't know, sometimes, a lot of times when I read a book, if the ending doesn't go the way I think it should go, it's ruined the book for me. Like, I'm like, yeah, it was good, but the ending was, so now I'm like, you know, but this was like, okay, like I was very satisfied with how it ended and the resolution to everything in the story. So, yeah.
Okay. What did I like?
Yeah.
So, it's funny you say the story dragged a little bit in the beginning. For me, it was a little bit too much in the beginning, because it was just going, information. And it's like, where do I look?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a burst of information in the beginning, and she was jumping to this and then jumping to that and then jumping to this. And then, so I loved that actually. Once I kind of got used to it, at first I was like, oh Lord, this is too scattered for me. But once I got used to it, I loved it because it kind of mellowed out as you was reading. So it wasn't just all this bam, 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 jump here, jump there. I feel like in a way that was kind of maybe her experience. Like her mind was everywhere, but as she started to kind of navigate her life and understand herself, kind of smooth out. So I love the pacing of the story, honestly. I kind of, at first, like I said, I was hesitant. I didn't know. I'm like, I'm gonna have to start this book over because what is she even talking about? But at the same time, once I started to really get into it and pay attention, I just loved the flow of it. And I was like, maybe that was intentional. Maybe it gave a glimpse into how the main character Martha was experiencing, you know, her thoughts mentally. I don't know, but pretty much I like the pacing. I did like the humor. So this was, I believe she's a British author, right?
I think
so I tend to enjoy British shows and British comedy. So I felt like this book had a bit of that. If she's not British, she did a good job of capturing like that British wit. So I thought it was a lot of witty moments throughout the book, and so that she made the character very witty, even though she wasn't outwardly trying to be. That's just how she was. So it was very like a few humorous moments just in how she was, how she operated, how she responded to people. You found it a little bit comical, at least I did anyway. Let's see, what else. So when I said I saw it in a picture with 7 Days in June, for me, yes, it doesn't have, that literally was probably that person like, oh, these are 2 books I read. But I will say for me, because I feel like you're going to have a difference of opinion, I feel like I would celebrate this book in the same way that I celebrated 7 Days in June, because I feel like, yes, it's a different type of story. It's a different type of journey. It's not really necessarily a romance, but it kind of is, because she is focusing on her relationship with her husband. And really so much is rooted in not necessarily how she views herself, but kind of how he views her. So you start to learn like he's not having the same journey that she's having. And I like that. I like the juxtaposition of just her experience, her thoughts on herself, and ultimately it combating with how other people view her, especially her husband. Because her family is like, I really love the family bond they had. Like I loved her and her sister's relationship, and her family's like utterly in love with her, but she can't understand that. She can't feel that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just really enjoyed her discovery journey with all those things. So yeah, those are the things I love.
Okay.
Or I liked. So what did you not like about the book? I feel like you got more than me.
No, I think that one things I didn't like was that I did feel that it was slow at times, or maybe it wasn't slow. It was more so.
You can say it was slow just because I said it was.
Well, yeah, the beginning it did drag to me. It's kind of like, oh, okay, where's this going? But just more so when I got into the book, I feel like sometimes it lingered on certain moments. I'm trying to think of like examples of what, but I can't even think of it now. And I also didn't like, or I would have liked it more if it, which it wasn't about the other characters, but I would have liked to see stuff from, even though we got to see a glimpse from her perspective of how her husband felt, but I feel like since he was like the other central character really in the book besides her family, and I would have loved to see things from his perspective, like just, you know, because yeah, like you said, like just her seeing they were having a different journey but in the same, you know, relationship, and they saw things very differently. He was such an interesting character to me, just in the sense of how they got together and how much he loved her, even though she, you know, was obviously dealing with all these things, but he loved that woman. He was down for her. And I think I would have loved to see, like, you know, like what, even though you got, it gave you enough to understand, like, okay, he came from kind of like a broken-ish home and kind of was like casted off, but I would have loved to see like things like from his perspective, from his voice or whatever, and from her dad. I feel like her dad was a very interesting character, and I would have liked to learn more about him. Yeah. So that's the only things I disliked. I would have wanted to hear more perspective from the other characters, and get more into their like lives, but it wasn't about them ultimately. It's more about her illness and her relationship with those people. So I'm not mad at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I would agree. I wanted more time, or not even necessarily more time, but yeah, like you said, more perspective of their experience with her, because they were interesting characters. I did really enjoy. Sorry about background noise, y'all. We got things going on. But I did really enjoy her husband. I too found him very interesting, and I feel like he still was a little bit of a mystery to you, because you did get a lot of his insight, but you still wanted to understand really what drew him to her.
Like, why did he put up with
right?
it so
Yeah, why did he put up with it so long? What caused, even though she kind of talked about the breaking point, what caused him to finally decide at a certain point that he was going to walk out on her? And yeah, so it would have been nice to see more of other folks and what they were going through when it comes to just her overall behavior. I did think that I would have liked to know too, more of the impacts of her behavior in regards to her relationships. Like, you get, of course, a sense of her impacts with her husband, maybe her breakdown with her sister. But I would have liked to know specifically, I guess, for me, I guess she spoke on what the things she did, but what specifically would make it like really odd behavior. They really didn't, even though they talked about her illness, talked about her feeling, they really just kind of centered on just the impact of it versus what was actually yeah. So some of that I would have liked to explore a little bit more, just so it can help me understand like just the impact on the other people in her life. But other than that, I didn't have much I disliked about the book. I actually, like I said, I ended up overall enjoying it. So what did you rate it?
I rated it 3 stars. And I feel like, I don't know, I think I was having a harsh rating month. Sometimes, you know, I'm in the mood, I'm just like 4 stars, 5 stars. But sometimes I'm just like, I'm critiquing a little more. But only because it was a good book. It was good writing. I really enjoyed the story. But it wasn't like, I don't know. I think, for me, I think I compare books to other stuff. So when I think of like books like this, I'm thinking of The Year of Rest and Relaxation, where she kind of like was dealing with depression and mental illness and how they went about telling that story. Yeah, even with the Eleanor Oliphant and like how they told that story, I feel like in those moments it like took me more. I was more intrigued, and not that I wasn't with this story. It was kind of like like I enjoyed that, but wasn't like, oh my god, like I love this book. So yeah,
okay.
But I did enjoy it. I would still recommend it, but
yeah.
So for me, I was being harsh. I don't know.
I mean, that's okay. That's your opinion. That's your feeling in that moment. So hey, capture it.
I stand on 3 stars.
Okay. I gave it 5. And I'll tell you why. Because one, for me, it wasn't expected. I felt like, especially how it started, I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. I feel like also it was not, I don't want to say it was a slow burn, but it was like some simmering that the book had to go through, or that the plot went through, or the journey you went through with the main character. So, you know, when stuff simmer and it sits and it's good by the end. So that's what it was for me. It was just like,
I can see that.
As I got to the end, I found myself really heavily invested in her. She wasn't an off-putting character at all, even though she was kind of like, wow, why is she acting like this? But I think you still found a way to really like and enjoy her. And then when you realize, it's kind of like one of those books when you get to the end and you realize, wow, okay, this actually did something. Because as you're reading, you're not realizing what's happening. And then you get to the end, and it's one of those books you can kind of look back and be like, okay, that was an actual hearty story. Yeah. So I think that's what it did for me. And why I rate it so highly, because once you think about it, it's like, for me, it had a lot of elements that I really enjoy and just came together kind of similarly to some other books I have rated a 5. So that's why I would give it a 5. I thought it was like, I didn't think I would do that, but when I started, but when I got to the end, it's like, 5. All right, so you already kind of said you would recommend it. So
yeah, I would still
who would you recommend it to?
I would recommend it to anybody who likes to reads good hearty books. Not to any of my people that like just be, you know, don't really read, but they like, oh, what would you suggest? Like, it's not something, because I don't think they would be able to stick with it. Yeah. But to people who enjoy fiction, enjoy reading about mental health, I would recommend it to them. It was a good story, and it was good writing, and I definitely enjoyed it. I did.
Yeah, I would agree. I would recommend it to a lot of people, but yes, if you're not a reader, or if my friend isn't a reader who I would recommend it to, I probably wouldn't say this, because it is, I feel like it's not a reader's book in a way, but you do want to at least be in the habit of reading.
You have to be a little invested to get through this story, I think. Not that it was a hard read, but you just you
kind of have to hang in there, especially with the burst of information in the beginning and just the track of it. So yeah, I think it is for more of a person who has more of a reading habit. I think it could be enjoyable, but I think people who will really enjoy it are people who are like good hearty books, like you said, and really developed stories, because character development, I would say, is really good and as well. So if you like those type of things, definitely I would recommend it. But yeah, I'll probably be cautious with people who don't really read like that. Yeah. I'd be like, yeah, if they ask about it, I'll be like, I enjoyed it, but I read. So I would put that caveat out there. So other than that, that's really it with our thoughts.
Yes.
Let us know
how did you guys feel about it.
Right. If you read it, let us know those thoughts. We love to hear about it. If you didn't enjoy it, let us know too, because
and why?
I don't want to say it's a polarizing book, but I guess it can be. Like this video, subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll be back next time. Bye.